Hello and welcome to this new Driving for Better Business video podcast series, The Hidden Risk. We'll be speaking with leading experts to uncover the often overlooked risks that impact driver safety, operational resilience and corporate responsibility. These insights will help you take informed, strategic action to reduce those risks, improve safety and run a high-performance operation. Driving for Better Business is an award-winning free programme from National Highways. With a wealth of free tools, resources and case studies, it gives managers everything they need to pursue best practice in managing driver safety. In Episode 2, we'll be hearing from Matthew Avery, Strategic Development Director at Euro NCAP. We'll be discussing why there's a discrepancy between car and van safety features, what the key active safety features are and how they work, how the manufacturers have responded to van safety ratings, what the new van safety ratings mean for fleet operators, and what fleet operators need to know when ordering new vans. And now over to our presenter, Julie Maddox.
Now, in 2018, Euro NCAP analysed the market and revealed a huge discrepancy in the safety equipment between cars and vans, even, would you believe, from some of the same manufacturers. But what is the reason behind all that? Why is there such a difference? To help make sense of it and looking at the importance of safety in all our vehicles that we drive today, I'm glad to say that I'm delighted to be joined by Matthew Avery, who is Strategic Development Director at Euro NCAP. Matthew, hello, thanks so much for being part of this podcast with us today.
Nice to be here.
Thank you. So I guess the question really has to be, why? Why is there such a difference and such a discrepancy between cars and van safety?
Well, you need to look at, there are two reasons why manufacturers are fitting safety equipment on any vehicle. The first is regulation, the rules, the laws that force them effectively to fit systems on their vehicles or improve the structure of their vehicles. But those regulations take a long time to get into place. They tend to last a long time and they tend to work to the lowest common denominator. So in other words, manufacturers that you know, the household names of Volvo and Mercedes, who you know have very safe vehicles, they go way beyond regulation and they sell safety to their customers. The other way manufacturers obviously are encouraged to fit safety systems on vehicles is to work such as Euro NCAP. Now, we are a not-for-profit organisation. We're European based in Belgium, but actually we were formed by the UK Department for Transport, so we're pan-European. And our aim is to explain to the consumer that not all vehicles are the same when it comes to safety, that some manufacturers go way beyond that baseline regulation that everyone has to comply with and produce these much safer vehicles. And the statistics and the data tells us that this is really important. Now, when we started testing in 1997, most of the manufacturers told us this is for cars. No one's interested in this. No one will be able to get 5 stars and probably not even 4 stars. And it was one manufacturer, Renault, who actually were the first to exploit that. They were the first with 5 stars beyond all of the other manufacturers. And they understood that safety sells and they really exploited that. And since 2001, when Renault started that, we've had almost every single car manufacturer fitting safety way beyond regulation to show that their vehicles are as safe as their competitors, because no manufacturer can afford to not have a good rating from Euro NCAP.
And that is the interesting thing, isn't it? You mentioned from 1997, the difference, I'm right in saying I think it's 65% of reduction that we've seen in lives being lost and, critical incidents that are on our roads because of the work of Euro NCAP. It's good, I guess, that it is, you say safety sells, and Renault has recognised that the rest are getting on board.
Yeah, and we don't see any manufacturers now that don't at least strive for a good safety rating. Now, they're not all 5 stars because every 3 years we lift the hurdle. It's very, very important that we continue to push manufacturers to exploit new safety systems. So originally, when we set up Euro NCAP, We were doing what we call passive safety. So that's only crash testing, that's dummies and seatbelts and airbags and crash tests and all that good stuff. By about 2010, it was very clear that there was new technology being fitted to vehicles that could help avoid the crash in the first place. So prevention's better than cure. So these systems using cameras and radars and lidars were actively involving the vehicle and actually taking over from the driver, intervening to prevent the crash. Now, almost all vehicles have got these systems fitted, and they're reducing crashes by something like 40%. So a lot of drivers out there won't know that their life was saved, or at least their no claims bonus was saved, because their car intervened. And so the push for Euro NCAP since 2014 has been to look at both active safety systems and passive safety systems and produce a 5-star rating that's really what the very best in the industry can do. And that sets the benchmark for the other manufacturers to follow.
And you're right, though, there's the benchmark, but you have to keep lifting that bar, don't you, to make sure that safety is improved all the time. There's always room for improvement. Going back to vans, if I can, for just a moment, Matthew, why is it, though, you know, they're part of our day-to-day lives, they're still overlooked. Do you think we're getting there with the manufacturers now? Are they actually making the change that's needed?
Well, as you mentioned, in 2018, we did a survey looking at where van safety was, and there was one clear message. The manufacturers were not investing in safety when it comes to vans. Now, as I said, they're all legally compliant, but that was the difference. There was no NCAP pushing them forward. So in 2020, we began Euro NCAP testing of vans. And our initial results, we showed exactly where the differences were. So you mentioned we looked at certain vehicles from certain manufacturers, and these were vehicles that are very common on our roads today, and we compared them with the equivalent passenger car, and the results were startling. That passenger cars that were 5 stars were coming with automatic braking systems for cars and cyclists and pedestrians, and lane support systems and speed control systems, and lots of ADAS technology helping to prevent crashes occurring in the first place. And the data tells us these systems really work. We look at the equivalent van for the same purchase price, and they've got nothing. They've got no AB, they've got no ADAS, they've got nothing. Many of the vehicles don't even have some of the basic passive safety protection systems that you would expect them to have, like seatbelt pretensioners and airbags. And so we set ratings in 2020, and we had vehicles with very poor ratings that would be the equivalent of 1 star. We had some three-star vehicles back then. Oh, how things have changed. If you look at 2025 results, many of them are 4 and 5 star now, and they're fitting this safety technology, and they're also improving their passive safety technology. So the vans that you are buying now are much safer than they were in just 2020. But we've got problems. A lot of the vans on the market are quite old. They tend to have a long shelf life, and therefore it takes time for manufacturers to make these changes. So the changes that we're making next year lift the hurdle even more. All of that equipment, safety equipment, must be standard fit. And we're also introducing new passive tests, so crash tests, that are really going to hold the manufacturers' feet to the fire to make sure that they make their vans at least as safe as their cars.
And so they should. I'm absolutely startled, and forgive my ignorance, you know, as a layperson, to think that there was nothing there at all in 2020. So, I mean, to be applauded, the changes that they are making, and you said all the difference in 5 years, but still a lot of work to go, isn't there?
Yes, and there is, and that's why one of the most important documents that we produce as an organisation is our roadmap, clearly telling the vehicle manufacturers what they need to do over the next 6, 9, 12 years to get that 5-star rating. So we're always looking ahead. We're always looking at new technology. We're looking at what manufacturers are likely to fit, and we're looking at technology that's likely to make a difference. There's lots of options out there. Manufacturers are constantly innovating. Only certain technologies are really going to make a difference to crash frequency and occupant safety.
So the work of Euro NCAP is brilliant. Obviously, I always say competition is quite healthy. Is that what you're seeing in the marketplace as far as manufacturers are concerned, Matthew?
Absolutely. The manufacturers are responding very, very well. We're seeing competition between them. We're seeing competition to get that coveted 5-star rating. And we're also seeing manufacturers like Ford boasting about it, putting it in their adverts that they're 5 stars. And this is really what we need. And the other key part of that, of course, is with vans and now our new heavy truck program, we're talking to a different audience. The audience for passenger cars is you and I looking at home, looking at results that come on the news or whatever, and making decisions that protect our families and ourselves. When it comes to fleets, when it comes to vans and trucks, it's all about the bottom line. And there are various parts of the industry and parts of the system that we're tapping into. So it's not just talking to consumers, although they're part of it. It's also talking to fleet buyers. It's talking to road authorities. It's talking to both the shippers and the hauliers to make sure they're involved and they know that there are safer choices out there, not only to protect their drivers, to protect the people around them. There's huge pressure now on corporate social responsibility, that fleets have to demonstrate that they're providing a safe place of work for their drivers, but they're also doing their best to protect the people that they impact, whether that's from environmental reasons or whether that's from road safety. And no shipper wants to have their brand emblazoned across a van or a truck that's involved in a collision that leads to fatalities. That is bad reputational risk. So it's important that the fleet buyers not only think about the bottom line, about I don't want my vehicle off the road having a minor crash, much better, it's always working. Also, I need to protect my driver, but also I need to protect my brand because it's going to be important. I don't want to lose customers if customers lose confidence in my ability to run a safe operation.
All that you've just said there, Matthew, I have to say is very much in line with driving for better business and what it is actually striving to achieve. I understand that Euro NCAP has followed the goal of Vision Zero for many years. Can I ask, what does that actually mean, Matthew?
Well, Vision Zero, as you say, it is a goal. It's something that we aim for. It's our, if you like, North Star. And what we're doing there is basically, it's the idea that you completely eradicate all casualties on the road. That's zero. So we have no serious injuries or casualties or road deaths. And of course, we're a long way from that. We've seen a steady decline over the last 20 years in fatalities and serious injuries on UK roads, but it's beginning to go back up again. Certainly as we get more vulnerable road users, more people are cycling and walking, and that's good for their health, but we're seeing more instances with injuries from striking pedestrians and vulnerable road users. So there's more work that we need to do there. But Vision Zero is saying that we need to tackle every class of vehicle and we have to tackle every crash type. Now, our heavy truck program is a very good example of that people were asking about, well, I thought you were only focused on cars. Well, we've been doing vans since 2020. They're a major part of the population. And trucks, again, although they're only 3% of the population, they're involved in 15% of fatal crashes. So we need to do every single vehicle type. And yes, we're now talking about looking at buses and coaches because we need to look at every vehicle type if we're really going to achieve Vision Zero.
So you're talking about commercial vehicles, we're talking about heavy trucks, but also you spoke about vulnerable road users there. So I guess really the message from Euro NCAP and from yourself, Matthew, is we all have a part to play. All of us, if we want to achieve Vision Zero, we can do it by working together and actually just changing the way perhaps we use the roads.
Yeah, we need safe roads with safe vehicles and safe drivers. And obviously, our influence is really about the safe vehicles. Others, like National Highways, are looking at safer roads, and obviously, Driving for Better Business is looking at road behaviour and driver behaviour as well. And that's all very, very important. We also need to make a lot of these technologies better. A lot of drivers now are aware of safety technology, but a lot of it they find very annoying. Bings and bongs all the time going off. And they simply don't understand what the vehicle's telling them, and they feel that the computer's trying to take over. And again, that's something that we're beginning to address. So we're now testing vehicles and we're assessing their HMI systems, how people interface with their systems, what they understand, because we're encouraging manufacturers to make vehicles where the systems are much more sensitive to the threat level. Now, what I mean by that is a conventional vehicle today with a lane support system. If you then drive over the white line, the broken white line, the car will warn you. It might even steer you back into the lane. And if that's on a twisty country road like we have here in the UK, the drivers are going to be annoyed saying, I know what I'm doing here and there's no threat. There's nothing coming the other way. Why do you have to steer me back into the lane? We're looking at systems now that are a lot more intelligent. They're effectively looking at the driver and looking at the road ahead. And these systems are saying, yes, there's a broken white line, but we can see you as a driver are aware there's a broken white line and you want to drive over that. And there's nothing coming the other way, so that's perfectly safe. So maybe I'm going to tone down my warnings and not intervene unless it gets quite dangerous, because we don't want to annoy the driver. However, if the driver's looking the wrong way or daring to look at their mobile phone and there's a car coming the other way, don't warn the driver, intervene immediately and drive that vehicle back into the lane to avoid a collision. That's what we mean by smart safety systems, and that's what we're pushing for.
It's music to my ears. We've recently got a new car, and I have to say, you might have been, could well have been a passenger in the car if you heard me sometimes getting quite annoyed with that car as it tries to rearrange where I'm going. Matthew, thank you for now, because we're just going to have a little word with Mark Cartwright, Head of Commercial Vehicle Incident Prevention at National Highways.
With more than 5 million vans registered in the UK, it's a common misconception that there's no legislation governing van drivers and van operations, and that's entirely wrong. As part of our work at DFBB, we recognise the vital role that vans make to the UK economy, and road safety being a shared responsibility, we've produced the Van Driver Toolkit, a free resource which provides advice and best practice for van drivers and their fleet operators to do their part to help us ensure the safe and legal use of company vehicles and to support the well-being of drivers.
Thank you very much, Mark. So, Matthew, we heard there from Mark Cartwright and how safety is at the heart to Driving for Better Business and what they do. Do you think that is something that too often is overlooked for some organisations, of just actually looking at the safety of their drivers, their well-being, and how we actually work together?
I think safety doesn't take the priority that it really should. And unfortunately, a lot of fleets and operators really begin to focus on safety too late. It's because they've had a serious collision or an incident where they're forced to look at, how they operate. And we would like to encourage fleets and fleet operators and buyers to just think a little bit earlier. All of the information for safe vehicles, for trucks and for cars and for vans is all freely available, an open resource on the Euro NCAP website, so euroncap.com, and people can look at the best vehicle for their operation. And we'd like them to consider also driver training. What we hear from fleets is, although drivers are sometimes annoyed by the systems that go off in the cab, the drivers, once they're trained, really begin to understand that that system's trying to help them. And once they understand what that warning's about, how they can override it or ignore it if they choose to, they're a lot more accommodating because they get attuned to it. And then when they hear the warning when they think they shouldn't, they begin to look at it. And quite a few fleets have really benefited from that targeted driver training to understand this is what my vehicle's trying to do and trying to help me. And at the end of the day, I, the driver, I'm in control.
Clearly a lot of work being done, but still a lot more to do. So what is next for Euro NCAP then, Matthew?
Well, as I mentioned, for vans, the most important thing for us is that we're introducing new testing on passive safety. So we're looking at first time we've done full-scale crash tests with vans. Now that's very important because it's not only protecting the driver of the van, who statistically is better protected than the passenger car they might hit, but it's also making the vehicle more compatible. Now what I mean by compatibility is we need to ensure that the vans themselves are not too strong and stiff, and the fact that they protect their occupants, but they're also going to do a lot of damage to the vehicle or the pedestrian they hit. So we encourage the manufacturers to tune that vehicle so it's sharing some of the burden in the crash. And that's something that we already do with passenger cars. So there's a lot of concern for instance, SUVs, and they're regarded as being too aggressive. Actually, for some years, Euro NCAP has been testing vehicles to encourage the manufacturers to make them actually more compatible with other road users. In other words, they do more of their fair share in a particular crash to absorb the energy, but protect their occupants as well. And so we're moving that onto vans as well. We're also looking at direct driver monitoring systems. So these are systems that are constantly monitoring the driver and encouraging them to not look at that mobile phone, keep their eyes on the road. And of course, that technology then is integrated with other technology, as I said, to then tune the warnings. So those are all things that we're introducing into Euro NCAP, and we're working very closely with the vehicle manufacturers for vans to ensure that they are aware of this, they understand our roadmap and what's required to get that 5-star rating in 2029 and 2032. And we're doing the same thing with heavy trucks. We have a new heavy truck program where, again, we're telling fleets the safest truck for them to buy. And we have new tests that are coming out in 28 and 2032 that will encourage manufacturers to make those vehicles more compatible as well. And it's quite difficult to make a 44-tonner more compatible, but there's things that we can do, and people like Driving for Better Business and National Highways are helping us do that.
Matthew, you did actually allude to the free resources that are available to everybody to download and to access via Euro NCAP. Once again, where can we find out more information, please?
That's www.euroncap.com, and all of our ratings are freely available there, whether that's passenger cars, vans or trucks.
Thank you very much to Matthew Avery, Strategic Development Director at Euro NCAP. I do hope that you found this DFBB video podcast interesting and, even more importantly, useful. To find out more about driving for better business and how you can access the free information and toolkits to improve your driver wellbeing and behaviour, just head to the website. It is drivingforbetterbusiness.com. From me, Julie Maddox, take care. I'll see you again soon.
Well, if you've enjoyed this podcast, please like and subscribe to ensure you're notified when future episodes are released. Links will be provided in the show notes for any documents or resources referenced in the discussion.